Good morning, boys and girls. How are you today? Happy Monday. Hope you had a really nice weekend. Are we ready to keep working on our stories? Hope you're excited about it. So, we've really focused on so far how we want our story to go, right? The direction we want our character to go in. But I think a really important part of developing that story is also developing that believable character. And what do I mean by a believable character? Well, one that you can relate to, one that you can see and that you could be a friend with or not a friend with, or just a real person. So let's talk about how we can develop an authentic character that not only has traits that you might see in other people, but that it fits the story. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So this actually is something we talked about a couple days ago that, writers need to live with their stories and the ideas of their story. And the main components we talked about the other day with somebody wanted because but so eventually we talked about just the general components of the story. But another thing to live with is to think about your character. So today I want you to be thinking about your character more specifically, the main characters that you're developing. Okay, so as I go through the slides, think about your character as well. So, developing a character goes far beyond just saying that your character has glasses and brown hair or that they're 9 years old. Believable characters are not just what's on the outside, but also what's on the inside. And we call that internal traits, the ones that are in the inside. Can you think of some that would be an internal trait? Maybe you thought of kind or patient or creative or um, loving. All those kinds of internal traits, things that you have that are on the inside. How about what would be some external traits? Well, I described some, right? The way that you look, those physical traits, um, and what they look like. And it's important to develop a character that has both. And I'm not saying that you should start your story with, Lily was a 10-year-old girl with blonde hair. It's not about enforcing those traits, it's about fitting them in when you feel like they're best to fit. So let's take a look. If we thought of Jabari, our friend Jabari is really helping us out a lot in the last couple of days. So, some internal traits I thought of were that he was excited, nervous, and proud, right? He was feeling all of those things inside. But on the outside, he was young and strong. And I put kind and loving there because I also feel that his gestures show that he is kind, so his actions. So I want you to think, you're going to be thinking about this. I gave you a chart just like this, which I'll show you, where you're going to think about some internal and external traits of your main character. So we talked a little bit about the story arc, and to create a believable character in your story, you have to think, is your conflict believable, right? Is it what they're doing and struggling with something that could happen? So there are several different types of conflict, right? So one is character versus self. So think about it. Is your story leading in a direction where your character is struggling with themselves? I would say Jabari was character versus self, right? He had to overcome his own fears. Is it character versus character? Um, is your character overcoming obstacles with another character? Character versus environment? I suppose if you did a story about camping or outdoors or something along those lines, that might be the struggle. Or character versus society. And that's a bit more broad, but society could be anything that has to do with social activity, a class, a friend, a group of friends, a team, could be the world, could be something with your town or village and whatever it might be. But a lot of the stories I imagine that you're reading these days, character versus self or character versus character, which helps you to really relate to them, right? So you're going to get a chart to think about what kind of conflict is your character facing. So what makes your characters believable is also thinking about the characters that are supporting them, like Jabari's dad. His personality was able to help bring um, Jabari to the point where he felt he could do it. If his dad wasn't that way, what would it be like? So think about his dad. Why is he so important? Well, I could think about how, when he saw Jabari struggling, he just said, "Why don't we do it another day?" And then, at the end. So his encouragement was really important. How would the story be different? Maybe he didn't bring him to the pool. Maybe he said Jabari was being a scaredy cat and forced him to go on the diving board without giving him encouragement, not giving him a chance to um, choose another day. So, who will your secondary characters be? I mean, your secondary character could be part of your conflict, right? Characters. Or your character could be someone like Jabari's dad who's going to help them along the way. If anyone's ever read The School Story by Andrew Clements, I think of Chloe and Natalie. Chloe was a really important secondary character to Natalie. If you've never read it, it's a great book. So let's wrap up a little bit. So, advice for developing a character. Decide what matters to you about your character. It's really important, right? We're not just writing about anybody. Who is this person? Are they like you? Are they like somebody else? Because remember what I said early on, your story grows and feels rich when you can connect with it. So think about how you feel. Think about how someone else might feel. And super important, create a character where all the parts fit. So if you're thinking about a character like Jabari, who's hesitant to go up this diving board, in the book, you wouldn't put him doing things that were out of character, like maybe excluding somebody in the pool or not listening to his dad, because that doesn't seem to be the kind of kid he is, right? You could see he's sensitive and thoughtful in what he does. So make sure that your parts are cohesive, meaning they come together. And think of general traits for your character, like creative, and does this trait have any meaning? So, create the interests of your character that fit your story. Okay, if your character likes to draw, maybe that makes sense to talk about a character like that if they're joining an art contest or whatever it might be. Make sure it connects. So here are some other things to think about. The long list. We kind of talked about all of them, right? We talked about talents, like Jabari's diving or swimming. His family, we talked about. His behaviors, his wishes and worries. That's what's going to create a believable character for you. And then, so finally, the last thing, I'm going to show it to you in just a moment, is to think about what is it that you're learning or your character is learning. Jabari learned that he could do it. Believable characters are believable when we know they can get through something and accomplish something and feel proud. Or not, but still learn a very valuable lesson, right? Sometimes we learn our most valuable lessons when things don't work out. So let's click on our writer's notebook. Okay, so here we are at our writer's notebook, and we were at day 4 yesterday. Okay, we did our story arc, and we're going to day 5. And just a reminder, it may not be exactly at the top of a page if your writing has pushed some of the documents down, but look for day 5, developing a believable character. And much of what we talked about in the lessons are here for you to do for your character. So what are some internal and external traits? You could type right in these boxes. I don't know why that happened to mine, so let's move that up. A secondary character, like Jabari's dad. Who is your character? Is it a sidekick, a friend, a neighbor, a relative, a teacher? And describe them. What do they act like? What is their relationship with the main character? And, thinking about your character's obstacles or struggles, kind of like when we were talking about the types of conflict. Is it internal, where it's character versus self? And if it is, you'll just type in the words yes. And if yes, what is it? You know, in this case, it would be something like Jabari is scared. What will happen if he jumps? Right? Something like that. External would be a character versus character, character versus society, character versus nature. So again, if it's this, then you would write yes and write what it is. Typically, the stories I imagine that you're writing do not include both. So, it's one or the other that you'll be filling in. You won't be filling in both of those rows. We talked a little about theme, purpose. What is the purpose of your characters? What your character is doing, and that's your work for today. So, good luck building that character up so that they can continue on their journey in your story. Have a great day writing today, boys and girls.